Law Enforcement Training Center for the ceremonial bill signing of 1241. Thank you everybody for making the time today to come out and be here for this terrific celebration. I want to start by just acknowledging some of the dignitaries that we have here in the room. We've got a lot of them, but I'm just going to start with the folks that are up here. I'll start with the home senator for our location here, Senator Aguilar. Thank you very much for being here. And then Senator Halloran, thank you very much for joining us. We also have a number of speakers that we'll have here today, including Senator Lathrop, who is the introducer of the bill, Senator DeBoer, who is the prioritizer of the bill, Senator Rob Clements, whose bill LB 1270 got incorporated into 1241, as well as Chairman of the Appropriations Committee, Senator Stinner, who we're also going to be talking about the investment in this facility and other investments in public safety that the chairman led the legislature through the investments with the ARPA bill 1014. And then we'll have several representatives from law enforcement speaking, starting off with Sheriff Miller, who's the sheriff of Buffalo County and the president of the Sheriff's Association, and then Police Chief Kevin Spencer from Scotts Bluff, and then Jim McGuire, who is the president of the Fraternal Order of Police. We also have other folks here. I just want to recognize Don Arp, who is with our Crime Commission. Don, thank you for being here. Of course, Lynn Rex, who runs the League of Municipalities, and that they were a key partner in making all this happen as well. So thank you very much, Lynn, for being here. Of course, then all the other law enforcement officers and all the other officials. I saw Mayor Lambert here. Thank you all very much for being here today for the celebration. I also want to thank all law enforcement officers for what you do for our communities across the state. In Nebraska, we support our women and men in blue, and they sacrifice for us. I'm sorry, Mayor Steele, saw you there as well. Sorry, just walked in. Our law enforcement officers sacrifice for us. They spend time away from their family and their friends. This is not a 9-to-5 job, and it's a dangerous job. They put their lives on the line for us. They're dealing with people oftentimes on the worst days of their life, whether they've been a victim of crime or been in a traffic accident. Our law enforcement officers are assets to our communities. And we need to recognize the work that they do. All too often, we hear in the mainstream media, national media, talking about the mistakes law enforcement officers make. And they don't talk about all the great things they do and all the times they get it right to de-escalate, to avoid a situation with a tragic outcome. And we have seen a national effort to defund the police. And that defund the police effort has had tragic consequences for those communities who followed through with that. We need to support the police. And I'm proud to be here today to say Nebraskans support our women and men in blue 100%. That's an applause line for you all there. Okay. I see we're going to have to walk through this a little bit more slowly as we go forward. That's fine. We can do that. I just want to say how much I appreciate. I'm personally grateful for the times I've had to interact with our law enforcement officers and how they keep us safe. And I'm grateful for all the sacrifices they make on our behalf. And we want to make sure that we support them. And again, I'm very proud here today to talk about all the investments that we are making in law enforcement and public safety this year. 1241 is a terrific bill. It creates reciprocity with other law enforcement agencies outside the state so that we can recruit officers here in Nebraska to be able to help them protect us. It also creates incentives for officers to stay with us through the 1270 attraction and retention feature of this bill. We're also going to talk a little bit today about 1014, which is the American Rescue Plan Act bill the legislature passed that will, among other things, make an investment in this facility right here, $47.7 million into the Law Enforcement Training Center to increase the capacity so that we can continue to train law enforcement officers and make sure they are prepared to serve communities all across this great state of Nebraska. In addition, there is $16.9 million for our Nebraska State Patrol Crime Lab so that we can help get justice for those victims of crime. Other bills that were passed this year included tax breaks for retired law enforcement officers as they're buying their health care insurance, a terrific benefit to provide free tuition to law enforcement officers who are attending an in-state university college, community college, so that they can continue their education. While other communities are defunding the police, here in Nebraska, we are supporting the police, we are funding the police, and we are making sure that law enforcement officers will have the tools they need to serve our communities. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the introducer of 1241, Senator Steve Lathrop. Senator Lathrop.
Thank you, Governor. A year ago, we worked with law enforcement in the Judiciary Committee and ultimately the legislature to pass LB 51. LB 51 provided for a number of updates in training requirements for law enforcement. That was done in cooperation with law enforcement, and I appreciate that effort. I think that was an important step towards ensuring that law enforcement has the training law enforcement wants to have, and they want the people who respond to an emergency, they want to know that the guy next to them has the same training and the experience, and they're working with a common set of understandings in how to deal with a situation. This year, the focus in the Judiciary Committee and ultimately in the legislature was to address recruitment and retention. And we had a long day of hearings dealing with just the subject of recruitment and retention. And this bill is the result of those efforts to attract law enforcement from outside of the state, make it easier for them to come in without having them requiring that they go through a full set of training at the academy. And then we added in Senator Clement's bill, 1270, was amended in there that provides financial incentives for recruitment and retention. I think this bill, 1241, is an important step in assisting law enforcement agencies, and in particular, smaller community law enforcement agencies in recruiting and retaining law enforcement. So we appreciate the opportunity to be here and to observe the signing of LB 1241 with law enforcement, and thank you for I'll just say this, thanks for all the opportunity I've had over the last 12 years to, as a member of the Judiciary Committee and as a chair for the last 4 years, to work with law enforcement on issues facing those who are out enforcing the law in our communities. Thank you. Missed one detail. This bill was prioritized by Senator DeBoer, who will be our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lathrop, and thank you to the governor for this opportunity to come out here and address you and participate in this celebration of the passage of 1241 and the other measures that we have done this year in the legislature to try to support law enforcement and law enforcement training efforts here in Nebraska. When I started on the Judiciary Committee, a common theme was that we had law enforcement coming in and talking to us about their needs. And the really wonderful thing is you get folks who drive, I mean, there are times when they say, I got up at 3 in the morning to start driving so that I could get here to be in Lincoln and testify so that I could tell you what it is we need across the state for our law enforcement. And I want all of you who have done that, who've taken that trip starting in the middle of the night to come and talk to us on the Judiciary Committee to know that we're so appreciative that you do that. We know that you have hard jobs. It's hard to get away. And yet to come down and tell us what you need helps us so that we can help you. And that's something that we see this very bill is one of the products of that. Last summer, we had an interim study hearing which talked about how this place right here in Grand Island works and some of the difficulties with retention and recruitment that we have with law enforcement throughout the state. And as a result of, it was several hours of testimony about the challenges that are faced by law enforcement in training and recruitment, we were able to come together and form a couple of bills, which we put together in 1241, which included the Senator Clements piece on recruitment and retention. What we know is that when we put measures in place to help law enforcement with recruitment, we get the best officers available. And that's really important throughout the whole state, to give you all the help that you need so that in your small forces you have several different candidates, you can fill those positions, and in the larger forces to have those folks who are going to be great at their jobs. So I want to say thank you to all of our law enforcement throughout the state. I'm proud to have been the prioritizer of this bill. This is my priority, and we have heard you in Lincoln, and we are so happy that you work with us, and we will continue to do so in the future. So thank you very much. And now I will introduce Senator Clements, who his bill became part of the 1241 package. Senator Clements.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Rob Clements. I'm from Cass County, east of Lincoln. And Jim McGuire, early in this session, brought me an idea of a bill for some retention payments. And I was thinking, and he was talking about how the smaller forces especially are needing to be recruiting more officers. And so I looked at that and I thought, well, that's a good idea. I'm tired of hearing defund the police, and I said, let's fund the police. And that's what this bill is about. It gives a retention bonus if you stay 1 year, then another one for 3 years, another one for 5 years, plus some hiring bonuses for attracting new officers. And so I was just really glad to be able to bring this and being a part of supporting the police. And thank you very much for Senator Lathrop. Senator DeBoer didn't have a priority on my bill, and it was able to be added in. And it's a $5 million commitment from the state of Nebraska every year. And I hope it just shows law enforcement that the legislature is very much supporting of you, and I thank you very much for your service. Thank you. And next will be Senator Stinner.
Thank you very much. I'm on my way home. That's why I know time, okay? Plus, it's 90 died. But, yeah, it kind of floored me. Rob Clements with the spending bill. Now, that's something to take note of. But thank you for inviting me here. It's an honor, certainly an honor to be part of this ceremony. Obviously, I want to thank law enforcement for what they do for our state. 1014 was the ARPA bill. It was kind of an unusual process because I didn't know what the governor was going to put into the ARPA bill or not, how prescriptive he was going to be or not. But I did have, I believe my backstop was Senator Aguilar that actually had the bill, a just-in-case bill. So thank you for that, Senator Aguilar. But the governor did put it into the request, and obviously trying to fit $4 billion of requests, and all of them were very good requests, but then trying to prioritize what we could do with that money, what would be the use of that money that would be the most good that we could do was really kind of a guiding principle for us in the Appropriations Committee. So I'm glad that it survived the whole entire process. Obviously, it went through the governor, went through appropriations, went through the legislature, and obviously was signed then. So I'm glad to have been a part of this, and thank you for all for what you do.
Well, thank you very much, Senators. I appreciate it. Now we're going to hear from members of the law enforcement community, and we'll start with Sheriff Neil Miller of Buffalo County, who's the president of the Sheriff's Association. Sheriff?
Thank you, Governor. Early on, for the last 18 months to 2 years, we've seen a huge problem with recruit and retention of law enforcement officers. We kind of started talking amongst all the professional law enforcement agencies that we needed to let Lincoln know. So we basically sent the message out, Lincoln, we have a problem. And certainly I think that you can say that Lincoln stepped up and worked with us to try and help solve that problem based upon everything that happened this year. It's just remarkable with all the law enforcement agencies and professional groups coming together, what can be accomplished. And so with that, I would like to thank Governor Ricketts for supporting and signing a number of law enforcement related bills this session, including LB 1273, introduced by Senator Elliott Bostar. LB 1273 will allow a retired certified law enforcement officer to deduct the cost of health insurance premiums for Nebraska income tax purposes. Such individuals must have served full-time for at least 20 years and must be at least 60 years of age to qualify for the deduction. Thanks to Speaker Hilgers for selecting LB 1273 as a Speaker priority bill. Thank you to Senator Steve Holleran for amending LB 1273 to include his bill of 1272. Thanks to Senator Lathrop, Hilgers, Holleran, Stinner, Aguilar, Clements, and DeBoer, who joined the other senators in advocating for passage of LB 1273 as amended. There have also been other bills passed and signed by Governor Ricketts this session, which will help law enforcement agencies across the state. On behalf of those law enforcement agencies, I say thank you to all of you. We appreciate it very much. And with that, I would like to introduce Chief Kevin Spencer.
Thank you, Sheriff. And in the now infamous words of Governor Ricketts, wow. We were watching. So I'm here to thank Governor Ricketts, Senator Lathrop, and Senator John Stinner, who met with representatives of statewide law enforcement agencies prior to the session to discuss how to successfully advocate for about $50 million in ARP Act funds for the needed COVID-related infrastructure improvements at LETC. Thanks to Governor Ricketts for including the money in LB 1014 as originally introduced on his behalf by Speaker Hildress. Thanks to Senator Stinner and other members of the Appropriations Committee for including the $47.7 million allocated for NLETC when advancing the bill to general file. Thanks to Senator Aguilar, who joined other senators in successfully opposing an amendment offered on general file, which would have significantly reduced the funding for NLETC. Senator Hilgers and Stinner also were prepared to defend this important funding. Due to COVID-19, officers in Nebraska are dealing with reduced community policing and engagements, increased violence and criminal activity, elevated caseloads, lost training opportunities, and COVID-19 related deaths. The $47.7 million will make transformational changes to expand and improve facilities to provide training now and in the future to compete with other states for top talent while reducing the spread of the disease. On behalf of law enforcement agencies across the state, we can't thank you enough. I've been very diligent in thanking all of the senators, and I don't know how to say it any different than just thank you. It is greatly appreciated. Thanks for listening. It has been a pleasure working with all of the senators and my colleagues in law enforcement. Thank you all. So, and with that, Jim McGuire.
Governor Ricketts, thank you. Senators Lathrop, DeBoer, Aguilar, Halloran, got Senator Stinner, Senator Clements. It's easy to come up here and say we support law enforcement. That's the easy part. The hard part is meaning it, and today we're proving it that this state supports its law enforcement. The Nebraska Turnover Police represents over 4,500 members, and the national FOP represents about 365,000 members. And we see it every day where states and cities are defunding their police. And with the passage of LB 1241, Nebraska is saying, we support our law enforcement, we mean it, and we need you. We want you. You are welcome here. And our communities are fantastic because they also support us. So with that, I can't thank everybody enough. I'm thrilled that this bill has passed, and it's time to start the recruitment process to get our levels of officers to the proper level where they need to be. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for all of our speakers here today for helping us out, and all the senators who helped make all these things possible. I can't think of another time when the state of Nebraska has made more investments in public safety than we did in this past year, and all the great bills that have passed for law enforcement. So I want to, again, thank Senator Lathrop, Senator DeBoer for 1241 in particular, Senator Stinner for all your work on 1014. These are just some of the landmark bills that have really helped contribute to us investing, us funding the law enforcement community here in the state of Nebraska. So as part of that, what I'd like to do today is also present some signed copies of the legislation to folks that are here in the room. So if you all could just bear with me a little bit, we got a number of people. Maybe I should take a step back and remind people, it's always a team effort. Law enforcement's a team effort, right? You all work together very closely to be able to keep each other safe. Passing any bill in the legislature is a team effort. It always takes a lot of people to get it done. There's so many folks, whether it's the senators on the floor, the law enforcement community that helps weigh in, all the different agencies or staff that get involved. It always is a big team effort. So we've got a big team here. We're going to recognize them. So I'm going to start with recognizing some of the senators here that helped make this all happen. And the first person I'd like to recognize is the introducer of 1241, Senator Steve Lathrop. Senator, thank you so much.
Governor.
Great job.
Appreciate it.
Next, I'd like to recognize the prioritizer of 1241, Senator Wendy DeBoer. Congratulations, Senator. And then, as we mentioned, 1270 was amended into this bill, so I'd like to recognize Senator Clements. Thank you so much.
you.
Appreciate it. All right. And then our host senator, Senator Aguilar. Thank you so much for your support. And then we have Senator Halloran here. I'd like to recognize him. Senator Howard.
Thank you,
Thank
Governor.
you.
Appreciate it.
Now we're going to zig a little bit here, because now I'm going to sign a copy of 1014 for Chairman Stinner from the Appropriations Committee. And I just want to, again, Chairman, I'm going to, again, as Lynn said, this is, I guess, kind of my show. I'm the MC, so I get to do what I want. I want to not only thank Chairman Stinner for specifically for 1014 and including in the investments in the Law Enforcement Training Center and the Crime Lab, but just in general, Chairman Stinner has been chair of the Appropriations Committee for 6 years and has just done a fantastic job. I really appreciate all the work you've done over the years. It is a lot of long hours in those Appropriations Committees. Senator Clements is also in that committee, so he can testify that as well. But again, just appreciate all your work. Not only did he have to do a budget bill this year, or update to the budget this year, but a whole other budget with this ARPA bill that I'm about ready to present to him. And that's a whole, as he pointed out, he got a $4 billion worth of requests for about $1 billion worth of money. And so that was a lot of work to go through all those different requests and sort those out. So I just want to thank Chairman Stinner for all his great work on that. Thank you, sir. All right. And Now we have some other folks I'd like to recognize who have been up here today. That might just be the highlight summary of Bill there. Well, we want to make sure that you can like frame that, put it on your wall or something like that. No, not the 50-pound other one. So again, I'd like to thank the members of our law enforcement community that are up here today to help make this happen. So Sheriff Miller, thank you so much for your help with this. And Chief Spencer, apparently you will be able to just follow Chairman Stinner back to Scotts Bluff to make sure he doesn't speed on the way back.
He's leading the way.
Speed limit.
Yep. Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate it. All right. And, all right, Jim, can you please come up? So I can present you a copy as well, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then somebody else who has really been instrumental in helping move all this along and has been a great advocate for the investment here in the Law Enforcement Training Center, among other things. I would like to call up Lynn Rex. Lynn, you're going to have to put the camera down to come up here and receive your signed copy.
Thank you, Governor.
Great.
Thank you so much. Thanks
sir.
for everything. Thank you so much. Thanks all of you.
All right, I've got a number of other copies here, and I've signed these already to be able to move these along as well. I want to start off with Don Arp, who is our crime commissioner. Don, will you please come up, and thank you for all your help in making sure we could pull all this stuff together. And now I'd like to call up the director of the Nebraska Law Enforcement Training Center, and thank you, Brenda Urbanek. Brenda, please come up. I'd like to thank you for all your work, but also for hosting us here today.
It's been my pleasure.
Great. And I'd like to call up the Grand Island Police Chief, Robert Faldorf, first vice president of PCAN. All right, and now I'd like to call up the police chief of Plattsmouth, Chief Steve Rathman, Nebraska Crime Commission member and past president of the FBI. Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, next I'd like to call up Broken Bow Police Chief Stephen Scott, President of the Police Officers Association of Nebraska. All right, next I'd like to call up the La Vista Police Chief, Bob Lawson, who is a member of the Nebraska Attorney General's Human Trafficking Task Force. Pick a few more wins. Next, I'd like to call Omaha Police Officer. Oh, Jim, we already got yours, so you're good. All right. Custer County Sheriff Dan Osmond, past president of the NSA, board member of the Police Standards Advisory Council. Good job. All right. Next, I'd like to call up Washington County Sheriff Mike Robinson, past president of the NSA. Thanks very much, Sheriff. Appreciate it. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Hall County Sheriff Rick Conrad. All right. Got a great barber there, Sheriff.
Yep, appreciate it. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up Captain Jeff Roby of the Nebraska State Patrol. Thank you very much, Captain. Great job.
Thank you, sir.
Next, I'd like to call up Captain Greg Miller of the Nebraska State Patrol. Thank you very much, Captain. Appreciate it. Great job. Next, I'd like to call up Plattsmouth Mayor Paul Lambert, President of the League of Nebraska Municipalities.
Governor. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next, I'd like to call up Grand Island Mayor Roger Steele.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Great investment in the community. Next, I'd like to call up the Executive Director of the Nebraska Association of County Officials, John Cannon. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
John.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call up Grand Island City Administrator Jerry Janilevich. Okay, help me. Huh?
Janilevich.
Janilevich. Thank you very much, Senator. All right, next, lobbyist for the Nebraska Sheriff's Association, Russ Westerhold.
I think he couldn't come.
Russ couldn't make it. All right, well, we'll send this back with you guys. How's that? And then we'll go ahead and call up Doug Hanson, Public Engagement Specialist of Olson. Olson prepared the documentation regarding the needed COVID-related infrastructure improvements for the Nebraska Law Enforcement Training Center. Can't walk away without your picture. I know. Another person who has just been tremendous, who not only on all these bills, but just in general, great team player on my team, Dustin Anatello. Thank you so much, Dustin. Where'd you go, Dustin? Come on up here. Dustin, thank you so much for all your work on all these bills. You've just been a tremendous part of the team, and I really appreciate all your great work.
Thank you.
And last but not least, somebody who is also part of the team, part of my team, who has done great work on the number side of it to make sure this all works from that standpoint, Joe Wilcox in my budget office. Thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it. Great job. All right, so Lynn, that was the list that I had. Was there anybody else that you didn't? All right, great. Looks like we got everybody. Again, folks, thank you all very much for being here this morning to be able to help us celebrate the great work of the legislature. Again, it's just been a fantastic session. I think if you look on all these bills, this will have a huge impact on public safety and law enforcement here in the state of Nebraska. And again, I want to just thank all of our women and men in blue for all their service to our great state. This investment shows that Nebraska does support our law enforcement community, and we're grateful for all that you do for us. With that, Lynn, I think we've got lunch lined up next. Is that right?
But before lunch, Governor, we'd like to have all
Okay.
the uniformed officers up next, and all of you that are there stay, but please get in.
All right, so we're gonna, so uniformed officers, come on up.
Uniformed officers, please
Did
come up.